So there we are. In our previous video, we saw how to set these breakpoints. In this one, we're going to look at actually using them. So when we debug a program, it's just like running it. It's just that now that we're running it, but we're going to stop at the breakpoints. We can run a program that's got breakpoints fine, but if we want to stop at the breakpoints, we have to debug it. And you can do it using the menus, run, debug the program, or right-click on the file in the file browser and select debug, or use the keyboard shortcut Alt-Shift-9. Or if you've already debugged it or run it previously, you can use Shift plus F9 or this little bug button, which you can see at the top right. So there it is. So this program, I could do right-click on it and do debug it. There it is. Or I can use this button. Because I've already been working with this program, we ran it once before, I can use this debug button. So if I'm already running the program, it'll just ask me, which I was because we hadn't actually finished it off, it'll ask me if I want to finish it and rerun it in the debugger, which I'm going to say yes. And there you are, there's the Windows firewall. It's allow access. Okay, so when you run it, you've got to make sure you type your input in the console window at the bottom and not in the code editor. And this is a slightly annoying thing. You have to go down to the bottom here. This is our debugging controls down the bottom, and you have to select the console. So this is where we're going to get the output, the input and output. And so this is where I need to type my answers in. That's slightly annoying because it automatically comes up with this debugger window open, and actually the one that I almost always want is the console because I want to see the output from the program. And obviously, if you're debugging a program, make sure you create the breakpoints before running the code, or it may just run and finish before you can stop it. You can stop programs in the middle of when they're running, but if you haven't got any breakpoints in it, if it's a short program, it may just run and you've missed it, so you have to do it again. Okay, so this example, the way I've set it up, as described, the execution is paused at the first breakpoint in the input and convert function, and it's shown with a blue line. Nothing has been printed because the input function has not yet been run. So that's what it looks like, okay? If I go to my screen, that's what it looks like. I can scroll up and down this window. You can see the running this program, what does it do? First thing it does, so remember the flow of control starts after the functions have been defined. So it starts here. It uses this input and convert function. And at this point here, I've put a breakpoint, so it's stopped, and it hasn't used the input command to print out the prompt. What's stored in the prompt? Well, I can see, if I hover over it, I can see the word's first number because that's what has been passed in. So immediately you can see that this is useful because I can tell what variables are storing. Okay, so once I've got there, it's paused. It hasn't done anything really other than just run that first line, and nothing's printed at the moment. The things that I'm going to need to control this program are these buttons in this debugging window. These are the main ones. So there's a variety of things, and you can use keyboard shortcuts. I tend not to. I don't know why, but I tend not to. So you can step over one line at a time using that one. You can step into a function. So if the line is a function, then you want to step into it rather than maybe stepping over it. You can step out of a function. So when you think, okay, I know what this function is doing, I can let it run on and go back out to the code that called it. Or you can, there's the play button, which continues to the next breakpoint. I'll demonstrate all of those things. And then you can stop debugging with this button. So they're kind of like play buttons, but there's these extra ones here at the top, which are giving you some more options. Okay, so those are the buttons we need. So we can use those controls to work through the code slowly. Okay, play button to continue, step over to step down to the next line, and so on. And usually we can, by stepping through the code, we can spot what's gone wrong. So we're using this debugger to find out what's gone wrong. And PyCharm is going to help us by showing what the variables are set to. Okay, so let's let's try and run this and get it. Let's find an error. Okay. So I'm going to step over this line. What happens there is I'm stepping over this line input. That's the line we were on, right? That input prompts the user for something. So here we've got to type in our first number, 5. Okay. And you can see now it's telling us with this light gray text here, it's telling us that the string 5 is storing the character 5. If I step over another line, okay, it's now storing the number 5 because it's converted. This conversion function is the int function, and it's converted the string to an integer. So the number is now storing 5. And then if I return that, so I just step over a line, okay, it's now finished executing this function. Let's just step over again, and you can see it's returned the 5, which is now stored in number 1. So number 1 is now storing the value 5 that I typed in as a user. Okay, so let's step down into this function again. I could step over it, but in this case I'm going to step into it. I'm going to step here. As it happens, there's a breakpoint there, so we stop anyway. Again, I know what's going to happen now, so I could just ignore that. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. So I'm going to step out of the function because I know what happens in that function. What happens is it prompts the user. I'll type in a number 7, okay, and it'll carry on executing that function, which we just said we want to step out of. It'll carry on executing, and when we step over this line, it's going to return the number 7. Okay, then it's again we've got to do the input and convert again. Let's just step. If I step over that, what's going to happen? It's going to stop at the breakpoint again. So actually, I could get rid of the breakpoint. I don't really need it. I know that function seems to be working okay, so I'll get rid of that breakpoint. I will step over that line of code. I'll step over that function using this key here, this button here. So it'll do the input and convert, and it'll ask the user what they want as an operation and convert it into a string. So let's just step over that. I'll ask what the operation is. We'll put in times, for example, and now we've stepped onto the next line. So all that code that was in the function has been executed without me having to do anything else because I stepped over that function. Okay, I can step over a line. Is the operation equal to plus? Well, I know it's not, so it's not going to execute this line 26. Is it a minus? No. Is it times? Yes, it is. So it will execute this line here. I can see actually there are no bugs in this program, so it's going to work fine. But I can see immediately which lines of code are being executed. And so it'll do this calculation. And now, if I've had enough of that, I think, okay, this program's fine. I don't need to do any more debugging. I can hit continue or resume program, this play button here, and that will carry on. We'll carry on executing the program until it gets to the next breakpoint, which, if you remember, if you've been watching this, you'll remember we put one in the output function. So if I hit play, it will now stop in the output function. The output is just given these two things: the answer, the string that says answer here, and the parameter 35 because it's done the calculation of 5 times 7, and it prints those two things out. So I step over that, and you'll see it's printed out the answer, and I can carry on. Okay, so you can see I can do it. I've got a lot of control now over how this program runs. I can start one line at a time, or I can step out into or out of a function. I can carry on until the next breakpoint, and so on. That would have been really useful with those examples we saw in the last lecture, where the functions were missing parameters and things, because we could check what was going on. Okay, let's stop that video there, and I'll tell you a bit more about PyCharm in a second.